Computer. Okay, great. Hello, everybody. Welcome. And we're just starting here. We're just doing a few introductions. Sue just asked a question from last week, and it's kind of a relevant question. So maybe we'll quickly start that way, talking about that. Then we'll get into the class. I'll introduce that and stuff. So I'll try and keep it on time here for about an hour. I'll just keep an eye on it. Today, just for the meditation, we're going to use Ganden La Gyema a little shorter. Yes, I'll leave the visualizations and everything for that, so we can maybe save time that way as well. So Sue, the question was, question asked, just I should say, giving a little bit of context to it. We just had done a wonderful weekend Mahamudra retreat, meditation on the emptiness of the mind with Rinpoche, Zasep Rinpoche in, well, we were at the temple and it was online and stuff. It was really, really wonderful. That was last week. And it was actually a dear friend of mine, Stephen, who was an amazing Dharma guy and scholar, asked, I'm dating myself. That's that game show from the 1960s, the $65,000 question, or what? No one knows what that means. But you know, anyway, my parents always grew up saying that. But that's sort of the tough question, I guess, kind of like the Lotto 649 question you get, at least with when you're not just a question about emptiness, but in particular, the question it hinges on for the Madhyamika schools on emptiness. In other words, if we're dealing with labels and bases, right? So they're using a little bit more of a Western philosophical idea, like what Immanuel Kant says, that when he says that experience, your experience of objects is something constructed by the mind. So he will say that out of all these different, and this is brought up again by a famous phenomenologist, Edmund Husserl, where he talks about constitution, how the transcendental subject constitutes an object. In other words, out of a series of perspectives, you get a unity. You know that this and this are of the same thing, but they don't look the same, right? Like if I show you this and this, they look very different. One's like a little white rectangle and one's a big purple, like mauve triangle. How do I know this is of the same series it's of the book? Well, that's something your mind's doing. Your mind's putting that together. So can't call that the transcendental synthesis of the imagination, right? That out of a series of possibilities, you're going to get what they call like object X, which is the book. Where am I going with this? Of course, is that the base are all these perspectives, all the different details, and the label or how something is appearing as something is the unity of that, right? So that's more of the Western idea. So in other words, you have a label, like a base and then a label. I see a metal thing with wheels, it's red. I say, oh, my red Honda, whatever, Accord or Honda Civic or something like that. That's the label. Say that that's the concept of universal on the dependent origination of all the different qualities forming the base. Label and base go together. Then you get the object, right? Then just that's what we live with. So the emptiness, of course, is when we're looking at things, things don't inherently exist apart from that process, right? That's what we were talking about. You get that a lot. So knowing that your mind is doing that process, that object isn't something separate, or in other words, empty or whatever of that process, the sort of impossible object or object of refutation, so to speak, the gacha or whatever, is claiming that the object exists impossible. In other words, it's completely, wholly unrelated and separate from your mind doing that, right? Now, the question you get, see, this is a really long debate. And of course, we're going to go into this just to let you know, Sue, that stay tuned to the Cowboy series of adventures next week. Eventually, we're going to come around to talking about this, because what you'll get in the 4 schools of emptiness is different reflections on how, basically like concept creation, you could say, right? So one of the more sutric schools of emptiness, called the Sautrantika school, we'll see is that out of a flow of phenomena, you're going to get, the mind takes a picture of something. Okay, so you know, anyway, so it's basic. So that's why they say what valid, we'll talk about that, of course, in this course, what valid cognition is that your experience of an object has to be, it's the initial take on it that has to be fresh, kind of awake and unconstrued, like you can't be on drugs, you can't be hallucinating or whatever. And then that's kind of like the picture you take of the object is correct. That's valid cognition. Any subsequent thing your mind is doing isn't a proper representation of the object. Now, where we're going with this is interesting, is that what the mind-only school says is that all you're dealing with is your concept. You're not dealing with objects, you're just dealing with representations. And the Madhyamika school gets serious. In other words, all we're dealing with is labels and bases, right? So what you'll see is that when we take a label, you see how the object literally for higher schools becomes more that the mind, something the mind is creating, rather than something the mind is chasing in the real world. Like here's an object chasing, your mind's taking pictures of it, running behind it. It's something that's constructed right from the beginning by your mind. Everything's just your mind. So that's when we talk about mind-only school. Now we'll get into that in later courses, but we're just talking about the Madhyamika thing with labels and bases. Now here's the thing is with labels and bases, every base can become a label. So if I'm looking at my red Honda Civic in the Costco parking lot, right? I've got all my bags. Oh my God, where did I park? Like in Vancouver, if you know the one downtown, like it's so easy to not know where your car is. So, oh my God, where's my red Honda? Who even drives Honda Civics anymore? Everyone drives SUVs, but whatever. I've got an old red Honda Civic. Oh my God. And then I see a little flash of something red at a little curve or something. So from that data, it's almost like from that base, instantly I say, hey, there's my red Honda Civic. Now, like Coast Road say, I'm looking for more evidence. I go around the corner and I look, oh yeah, there's my, because there's the big scratch on it. And there's my little junky Dharma items hanging from the rear view mirror. That's my Honda Civic, my red Honda Civic. Now, what's interesting is that that's the overall concept of the car, Honda Civic. And so the base would be, if I'm looking at the red color, the sort of overall shape, it's metal, it's got 4 doors, whatever. Then, but I can take each of those bits of the base and make that a label. So in other words, I say, all of a sudden I look, oh, hey, look at the red, focusing on the red. Now that's the label, and the base would be maybe the certain shades that give it the kind of red. I'm like, oh, you know what? Why did I buy that red color? It looks like ketchup. Who buys a ketchup color car? It looks stupid. Everyone's got these nice SUVs in the parking lot, and I've got the red ketchup car. I look like a dummy, right? Or whatever. So then I can make that label into, that base into a label. But the point is there's a base to that label. So this is why you have it, they say it's like an onion. So in the Madhyamika middle way consequentialist school, they always say that everything's there if you don't look for it. In other words, it's all like, once I start trying to find what's true or what's substantial or the quote unquote real object, all I'm getting is like a million Post-it notes stuck on top of each other. Or like Nietzsche says that when you're unmasking will to power, there's another mask behind the mask, kind of like an evil superhero, where you're ripping, like the Scooby-Doo at the end where they rip the mask off, there's another mask, you rip another mask, and it just keeps going. But who's the real villain, right? Who's the guy behind the mask? There's only masks. So the question Stephen asks is that, does that base exist out there? You can see where we were going with this. Now, why is this important is that in the, in the Yogacara mind-only school, it does. Objects are separate from your concepts. But when we get to the Madhyamika school, this is sort of a point of contention, right? This is the big part of the debate where they're saying that they don't. Now, what's interesting is we're getting all heavy into it, so I want to stop in a minute. But there's 2 Madhyamika schools on emptiness here. Okay, so what they call the Svotantrika or the autonomous school, and the Prasangika or middle way consequentialist school. Now, the middle way consequentialist school is the Prasangika school. That's the one we study in Tibetan Buddhism. Like when they actually have done the research in India, let's say in the Middle Age or period, let's say the 8th, 9th, 10th century, these kinds of distinctions weren't easily made. Like when you went to Nalanda and whenever, there wasn't sort of a group, almost like liberals, conservatives, or the Star Wars and the Star Trek geek club. Like they didn't have, oh, I'm part of the Prasangika club, I'm eating lunch over there, and all the Yogacara people, the losers, they're over in the other college, you don't want to hang out with them. It was all, by the looks of it, a lot more mixed up. So this distinction between the autonomous Madhyamika school and the consequentialist school is something more Tibetan scholars create centuries later when they're doing the scholastic work on it. But this is an important distinction. So Baba Viveka is the famous Indian saint sage that's responsible for codifying a lot of what they call the Svotantrika Madhyamika, or the autonomous school. So what he says is that the base has to exist separate from the mind for labels to work. Otherwise, how would I know which label to put on what? Right? In other words, for the valid basis for a label, there has to be something substantial to stick it on. Otherwise, labels are free floating, and you wouldn't, why call that a Civic rather than a Hyundai? Or why not just call it a lawn ornament? You know, like in other words, there has to be a real substantially existent base for things, for labels. So that's what the autonomous means when I'm making a syllogism. In other words, when I predicate something, it's something existent for all of us publicly, that's apart from us individually, that will work as a social basis for our language and concepts. I hope I'm not getting too confusing here, okay? Now, he's not a dummy, he's an amazing, so he'll say, ultimately it's empty, but conventionally it's inherently existent on one level, or it's separate from the mind. He wouldn't say, he probably never say inherently existent, but in other words, there is something existent as a base. Okay, so that's why they call it autonomous. It's sort of autonomously existing. So why they call it autism, what do I just say? Autonomous syllogism school is that when you're making logical arguments, the first thing you have to do is have a subject, something you're talking about to predicate on or prove. So the point is, as he was saying, for us all to agree, for language to work, there has to be something held in common we can talk about, an object independent of me personally that we all agree we stick labels on, right? We all see the car. This is the base that we call whatever, it's the red metal thing. We all see that. We're going to agree to call this thing a Honda Civic, but the base, those details are all independent of us individually, okay? At this point, most people are like, oh my God, why does this matter? Well, this does matter. It's kind of interesting. Now, the problem this position gets to is that if conventionally it's existent, in other words, it's separate from me, but ultimately it's not, then what's funny is that we can't logically or even philosophically, how do we account from labels being separate from us? If everything in the big picture is all related, can we really say these bases, I should say, are in any way existent on their own? See what I'm saying? So this is the problem, is it's almost like the indivisible remainder. When you're doing long division, you've got something left over that you can't, like whatever, there's something you can't account for. Anyway, far more, I remember reading somewhere in the expression someone had on the internet once, I can't remember who said it, but they said something like the turd in the punch bowl kind of thing. Like, it's a little bit more vulgar, I'm sorry, but there's something left over, the indivisible remainder that we can't account for. So these bases are unrelated to things. But then if in the big picture is everything's related, everything's a relationship, how can these bases not be in a relationship, right? But you see what happens, that the Prasangika school calls them on this and says, what's the status of the base? We all know the labels are just something done from the mind. Everything in the big picture is interrelated, so done from the mind. So how can the bases be separate from the mind? They can't be. But if that's the case, then there's nothing public. You see this, in other words, this is where the autonomous school goes from having claims about the world, like, okay, let's all agree, you know, Sue, whatever, life is like this, or time is like this, or whatever. The consequentialist school, why they call it consequence, is that you never posit anything as a position. You never make a claim about anything because there's nothing there. We're not seeing anything in common. You're literally in your own world. So what they do is, it's basically, if you want to know, it's very similar to the popular form of whatever called deconstruction in French philosophy in the 1960s, right? This all came from a being in time, Martin Heidegger's famous opus, where he called for what they call destruction of Western ontology. In other words, a destruction of how we think things truly exist as being. So what Heidegger always shows is that all of the things we think truly exist are just historical or social fabrications, right? And in the 1960s, one of his big fans, Jacques Derrida, comes up with the word deconstruction in French, right? In other words, any position claims some things are the case, but when you look clearly, it's full of all sorts of inconsistencies and self-contradictions. So it can't stand as a position. You know, if we say that everything is red, but when you look closer, in the red is green and blue and white and everything, then you can't say everything is red. Everything's got all sorts. In other words, everything is full of things it's claiming not to be full of, if I can really simplify it. So when we're doing the consequentialist school, we're making the same kinds of things. Is any position someone posits, we end up seeing it's relative or posited by the mind, so it can't stand as inherently existing, or a claim that's universal, public, unrelated to anything else. So if you read any of these, when you read Nagarjuna's book, any of his stuff, this is not that, this is not that, it's not that, it's not that. So it's kind of boring. It's like, you know, whatever, like, this isn't, you know, this isn't black, it's not metal, it's not square, it's not heavy, it's not got glass on it. And you start to think, it's 400 pages of this guy going on and on and on and on. But the point is that he's showing nothing stands by itself. Nothing stands unrelated to anything else. So he goes through the thing with Nagarjuna, if there's 100 qualities, he'll go through 100 no's, so to speak. So it's a little boring reading the books a little bit, because it's like, oh my God. But he wants to show that you can't hang on to anything. You can't claim anything's truly existing, right? So the Prasangika schools like that, which is why they always say you can't argue with them because there's nothing to argue about. They're going to argue with you, showing you that the moment you take a position, you're making a claim that you're claiming is unrelated to anything else, truly existent. And they'll say, really? Is that true? I'm going to show you how your claim self-destructs or self-contradicts, okay? So in other words, there are no bases truly. That's what the lower Madhyamika school claims, and this is the higher Madhyamika school gets rid of that. Bases do not truly exist. But once we get rid of that, then technically what's interesting is you're kind of stuck in your own world. And remember, there's no you anyway, because you are just a label on a base. So there's nothing to talk about. Now, why this is important is interesting. In Geshe Khalsen Gyatso Rinpoche wrote a book called Ocean of Nectar, which is excellent commentary, and there's a bunch of others. But that's Chandrakirti's commentary on Nagarjuna. It's called Nagarjuna's Entrance to the Middle Way. And there's a great line where he's dialoguing with the Satrantika Madhyamika person. And there's the great line where the Satrantika Madhyamika person says, okay, take this, for example. And then Chandrakirti says, what? What are you pointing at? Like, it's kind of fun. It's an inside joke. In other words, there's nothing to discuss here. Now, it's funny. This is what Tsongkhapa in our tradition said, understanding this distinction is the most important thing you can do in your life. So it sounds like we're a bunch of losers here on a Saturday morning arguing philosophy or something. And you're just like, oh my God, who cares? Like, this is some dumb seminar. But actually on an ethical level, this is the key. So, you know, I'm really dumb and this is all really superficial. I'm sure a bunch of scholars would sit here going, oh, Matthew's getting it all wrong. But this took years of study and meditation for Tsongkhapa to really penetrate the meaning of this. So if you read his life story, Thupten Jinpa's got a big one right now. I read Robert Thurman's got a couple. He's got a great introduction to called Central Philosophy of Tibet, which is Ocean True Eloquence from Tsongkhapa. It's a great one. Another one he did, I think in the 1980s or something, a little book, Life Story of Tsongkhapa. I think it's in there as well, you can see. But he couldn't understand this distinction. So he made all these prayers and pujas in retreat and went to bed. And then he dreamt, he had like a lucid dream, kind of astral travel dream. Ding, he wakes up and he's at one of Buddha Shakyamuni's teachings in the audience. And he's like, oh my God, this is like in India, like a whatever, 1500 years or 2000 years ago. And I'm actually, Buddha Shakyamuni's giving this teaching. It's unbelievable. So in the break or something, he's in the audience, all these people say, I can't believe this. He sees at the front in the first row, and there's all like hundreds of people, are all these famous Indian saints, right? Chanakirti, Buddha Palita, Nagarjuna, and they're all arguing over this issue. And he's like, oh my God, this is what, I can't believe it. So he's just like trying to listen like this. And he's in the Buddha Palita is a famous Madhyamika Prasangika guy who writes on this, him and Chandrakirti. So he's listening to this Indian guy talking about this. He's like, I can't believe this is the answer. And then in the audience, Buddha Palita gets up and walks towards him with his book and hits him on the head with this book. And so Tsongkhapa wakes up and was like, that's it. So he runs to his library and finds Buddha Palita's book, opens it up, chapter 12 or whatever, whatever it is, and it's on the distinction between the lower and higher Madhyamika school. And then, oh my God, this is it. I got it. The thing, and he has this unbelievable experience of emptiness. Then he writes that famous poem to Buddha Shakyamuni in praise of dependent origination, praise of emptiness. And he said, you are the greatest philosopher. You are the greatest teacher. You are absolutely amazing. I finally got what you're saying. Everything is relative. Everything is interconnected. Nothing stands by itself, right? This is the moment of my great awakenings. And it's a beautiful poem. Like even in English, I don't know what it's like in Tibetan because I don't read Tibetan, but in English, it's an incredible poem. It's so beautiful. And that's talking about this distinction. So why is this important? Once we get rid of the base being truly existent or existent in any way, if everything is based at that point, labels is just a projection of your mind. We ask, where do the labels come from? Well, we talked about that before, maybe, I can't remember when in this course. Labels, of course, are from your karma. How labels appear to you is from your past karma. They're the things that when they're stuck on a base appear a certain way as something. That's from the past, because reality is always being disclosed to you. It's always a product. It's always being revealed to you as a certain way. The labels appearing a certain way. In other words, when bases are assembled, you got a label, your mind's doing it, but it's not you at that moment that's doing it. It's from the past as a ripening seed, right? This is why if you're an angry person, you've been angry your whole life, some miserable guy like me, I hate this, everywhere I go, everything's showing up as being miserable and angry, right? So it's just like, Woody Allen had that famous thing where these two old ladies are talking about how much they hate the food in this diner. And they're just like, yeah, it's too hot, it's too salty. Yeah, and the one lady said, yeah, and the portions are so small. Right? That's the joke, right? If it's so bad, then why would you want to eat a lot of it? But the point is that even something good is showing up as something bad for this person because their mind's so negative, right? So this means that everything is basically, you could say, free floating labels. It's just literally how your mind labels things according to karma, which you can change if you change your habits. Then what do you get? You get me, let's say it's Matthew Richards, this guy here in my little shrine room here in Nelson, BC. This is me in my mandala. This is me in my which is my samsaric mandala, right? I have this sense of self that's suffering, organic, I'm falling apart, I'm getting old, everything hurts, and I'm gonna die soon, and then all the worms are gonna, and it's gonna go over and over and over again. And when I look out, for the most part I have, everything is quote, dualistic, seems separate from me, and contaminated. Knows that things don't last, they all fade away. Most part, my life sucks, whatever. I'm always having sorts of problems and obstacles. So I'm in the things where, I've got obstacles to liberation, obstacles to omniscience. Things look dualistically in my mind. I think dualistically, and they're causing suffering. Right? They're just riddled with suffering and problems. There's always problems, as Rinpoche always says, there's always problems in samsara. I solve one obstacle in my life, another one comes right up. There's always problems. But the thing is, there's nothing substantial about this. It's like a gigantic hallucination. It's a gigantic dream, nothing else. And guess what? The person dreaming it, I don't even exist as I see myself here now, right? It's literally free-floating labels. And again, this is a huge argument philosophically, right, on the social status of language, private language argument, Wittgenstein. This would take us weeks to talk about this. But what they're getting at in Madhyamika, it's not a question. We have conventions or we have public things that we do together, right? Obviously, language is something you don't make up by yourself. Language are rules given to you by other people. You can't go to Save-On right now and buy apples and say, how much are these oranges? How much do these oranges cost? People are like, lady, you're crazy. That's an apple. No, it's not, it's an orange. You can't use language the way you want because there's social rules. But the point is, in your little universe, what things mean to you personally is your own karma. How things show up. In other words, it's not just things show up as an object X, but also, so in other words, that's a discrimination aggregate, but there's also the feeling aggregate, which is how you feel, how it shows up for you. Is it relevant to you? Is it irrelevant to you? Do you like it? Do you not like it? So the point is like with Western philosophy and analytic philosophy, everyone's always trying to think in universal terms what it means for everybody. But the point is that there's no, on an existential level, we're not universals, we're particulars. We're living in our own movie. What matters to me, how this looks to me, is how it looks to me, my biography. That's why Nietzsche said philosophy is always autobiography. What matters to you, how things look like to me, it's what it matters. If you come in the shrine room right now and look, it's not going to look at anything to you like it looks to me. We can talk superficially, like, yes, this is whatever, this is a dorje and whatever, this is my mala, so what? But how this my mala appears to me is going to be very different in how it appears to you. Now, again, what's the take home? Is this, we're just doing stupid philosophy Saturday morning? No, reality is 100% plastic. It doesn't have to be this way. So the difference between me sitting here in my diluted mandala and Green Tara sitting here in a rainbow mandala, you know, or whatever, there's all flowers falling in the sky. It's just a question of labeling, right? So like I always say, the take-home thing is that Tantra is literally true, literally true, literally true. So it's not figuratively true, which is the way it's taught now in the West as a form of psychology and healing. In other words, Matthew, we all know you're not Green Tara, really. But if you visualize yourself as Green Tara, you'll be happier at work and you'll get along with your wife and it's easier to walk the dog. And you get along with people and think you're a nice person. I've got the secret trick is I pretend I'm this green naked lady, this angel who's emanating green forms and stuff like that. And it makes me really peaceful. I can be in the present moment. And then when I go out for dinner with you, I'm in a good mood and you're in a bad mood. So aren't I a good example visualizing myself as Green Tara, right? In other words, Matthew and his deluded mandala truly exist as a truly existent base. And then the fake label of Green Tara is stuck on top as a psychological trick to make you feel better about yourself, to make your samsaric worldly life just this much better. Like as Freud say, take pathological happiness and just make it into everyday unhappiness, right? Where you can still go to work and still be in a marriage and not be a psycho, right? With your family. But if we see it on this level, understanding labels and bases is just being, in other words, the bases themselves are labels, then anything is possible. And that's why Nagarjuna says that for people who sort of understand emptiness, anything is possible. People that don't understand emptiness, nothing is possible, right? So is that, you see why this is important, like studying this kind of philosophy, at least even intellectually, there is a really therapeutic reason for us doing this, right? So like a teacher, when he came to Tibet, greatest advice, 1,000 years later, it's the only advice you need to know, is he always said, Buddha's the doctor, Sangha are all the nurses and emergency medical technicians, the paramedic guys helping, Dharma is the medicine. In other words, all we're doing here is really, really deep therapeutic work, right? But the real therapy is in making yourself, the worldly you, better, because that's impossible. The real therapy is literally, it's like the surgery that cuts out the cancer. Tantra is the surgery that cuts out the cancer, which is changing, remember, diluted thoughts and then diluted appearances. In other words, we get rid of all of our dualistic thinking, and then the dualistic appearance itself will disappear as well. And that's done in particular through completion stage practice of highest yoga tantra. You have to do your lay run retreat and you start meditating on that. Is that, oh, there's half the class right now shooting my mind off, but is that, what do you think? So does that seem helpful? Yeah. Someone's phone's going okay, thank you, whoever. Okay, so that's, okay, I got an idea because this has just been me talking. We'll finish with a nice meditation. We'll do 20 minutes of Gyema. We can finish. What I'll quickly say here is what this class is going to be like starting, I guess, next week, per se. I'm happy for you bringing that question up. This, I don't think, was a waste of time. Thank you so much. It's amazing. And this is the class we're doing now, is Base of Yoda Asian Classic Institutes. It's course number 4 on valid cognition. So you can see we've already started talking about valid cognition. I've given the answer away. It's like a bad trailer that tells you the end of the scary movie. Now I don't even need to see the movie. I know the monster's in the closet or something. So, but you know where we're going with all of this philosophy for valid cognition. What does it mean for there to be a true or understandable valid cognition? Well, we're going to start with this course talking about this, but you see over the years where we want to end up in the Madhyamika school for this final cutting through answer. So as a Geshe degree, you study all the difficult stuff, and that thing is the little cherry they put on top. And like I say, what's interesting, it's just like Wittgenstein says, the end of philosophy, the real thing of philosophy is when you realize you can quit doing it. Like when you solve the problem, you untie the knot disappears, you've just got the shoelace, right? You show the fly out of the bottle. The end of your Geshe degree, when someone tells you that, I've been here 20 years, only to realize everything's just a label projected by my mind. Are you crazy? I spent 20 years, just, you could have told me that right at the beginning. But the point is that if you've done all this study, when it hits you and you finally, you've been trying to untie the Gordian knot, and Alexander the Great gives you the sword and you cut through it, you're like, you are finally liberated in your mind, right? And then the idea is that when you go on retreat, you won't have philosophical doubts. Like I'm sitting there eating my nettles, it's raining, I'm cold, I'm sitting there doing a million mantras. I'm not thinking, is this right? Did I make a mistake here? Like not only poor me, right? Living like this, but also what if I'm wrong? What if I can't really become green tar at Chenrezig? What if this is all I've been lied to, or it's all scam, or I made a mistake somewhere, an important mistake? Oh my God, what, you won't ever come to that kind of a problem. You've got valid cognition. You have a true perception on what reality is. You're knowing reality itself. So next week we'll do the first class on that. I'll talk about the 3 levels of reality for valid cognition, and it'll give a little bit of a background. I did this actually with my lovely friend Rob. We talked about this great book. Don't buy it because it's very, very complicated and stuff unless you want it. We've talked about this once. Ken Rinpoche, Serme Kensur Loseng Tarchen Rinpoche, who was the amazing abbot of the Glupta Monastery there in New Jersey. He was Geshe Michael Roach's teacher. One of my friends, it was one of her teachers. He was absolutely amazing. And he taught a lot of this stuff, which is one of the only real Glupta Lamas I know in the West that taught debate and logic in a traditional way. Now, I don't think the course was very big when he did it, but he goes on about a lot of the issues in valid cognition in this book. This one is readable. He did the same book. It's called Like a Heart So Dearly Needed for Liberation. So the great quote at the back here is, if you learn logic, in other words, studying valid cognition, when you take refuge or do any other Dharma activity, your practice will become perfect and efficient. Without learning logic, though you may be taking refuge, doing recitations and visualizations, and still be collecting a good deal of virtue, it won't be perfect practice. Only when you do these activities of knowledge will you gain perfection. Right? In other words, with the view or the idea or the framing we've been talking about, that really makes refuge or any of your practice work. So this is the value inside this. We're not going to study. It's only going to be about 4 or 5 classes for this module here. It's very short. I'm not going to teach debate. I'm too old. I can't do it properly anymore. Not that I probably ever could. There's all sorts of people online you can talk to about this kind of stuff. One of my teachers, Trijang Rinpoche's secretary there, Chopa, who was David Gonzalez's teacher, he said that he didn't think it was nowadays a good idea to learn all the debate stuff. It's too complicated, too hard. He's like, just do lots of practice and pujas and stuff. So I try and follow his advice with that stuff. And I know Zasep Rinpoche's been the same way. Rinpoche's never really encouraged us to run around debating with everybody. And again, like Plato said, he said, never teach young men debating, because then you just go to a party and you're a total jerk and you're just making everyone look stupid and fighting over politics. Like, it might make you, without the right motivation, more deluded and more intellectual and get you away from your Dharma practice. So we're just going to get a little bit into valid cognition in about 5 classes. I'm going to give one class as just a summary of this book because it's so good. This is, if it's at the Mahayana Sutra and Tantra Press is the name. You don't, I mean, what, you don't have to buy it. I'm just saying it's Ken Rinpoche's little group there in New Jersey that still put these books out. I don't know if you can get this on Amazon or not. David Gonzalez used to tell me it's just 2 guys that put all the books together, and they would put it in the mail for you. They're really, really sweet, too, Ken Rinpoche students. So there we go. Okay, so let's just take that as a nice introduction to the course today, and then we can build on a little bit more next Saturday and stuff. So let's take a moment here. We'll start with our Heart Sutra, and we'll have a nice long meditation on Ganden La Gyema, which is the Guru Yoga for Tsongkhapa. Okay, just starting with the Heart Sutra here. Homage to the perfection wisdom of the Blessed Mother. Thus I've heard, at one time the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajgir and Masvaltra's mountain, to the great assembly of monks and nuns, and a great assembly of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One was absorbed in the concentration of countless aspects of phenomena called profound illumination. At that time also, Superior Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the Great Being, was looking perfectly at the practice of the profound perfection wisdom, looking perfectly also at the 5 aggregates being empty of inherent existence. Then through the power of Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to Superior Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the Great Being, how should a son of the lineage train who wishes to engage in the practice of the profound perfection wisdom? Thus he spoke, and Superior Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the Great Being, replied to Venerable Shariputra as follows. Shariputra, whatever son or daughter of the lineage wishes to engage in the practice of profound perfection of wisdom should look perfectly like this. Subsequently, looking perfectly and correctly at the 5 aggregates being empty of inherent existence, form is empty and emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form, and form is not other than emptiness. Likewise, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, this all phenomena are emptiness, having no characteristics. They're not produced and do not cease. They are not produced and not just cease yet. They have no defilement, no separation from defilement. They have no decrease and no increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no compositional factors, and no consciousness. There is no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mentality, no form, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch object, no phenomenon. There is no I element, so forth up to no mentality element, and also up to no element of mental consciousness. There's no ignorance, no exhaustion of ignorance, so forth up to no aging and death, and likewise no exhaustion of aging and death. Likewise, there's no suffering, origin, cessation, or path, no exalted awareness, no attainment, also no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, because there's no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and abide in the perfection of wisdom. Their minds have no obstructions and no fear. Passing on and beyond perversity, they attain the final nirvana. Also, all the Buddhas reside perfectly in the 3 times, having relied upon the perfection of wisdom, became manifest and complete Buddhas in the state of unsurpassed, perfect, and complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurpassed mantra, the equal and unequal mantra, the mantra that thoroughly pacifies all suffering, since it's not false, should be known as the truth. The mantra of perfection of wisdom is proclaimed, Tanatam Gata Gata Paragata Parsam Gati Bodhisoha. Shariputra Bodhisattva, Great Being, should train in the profound perfection of wisdom like this. Then the Blessed One arose from that concentration and said to Spirit Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the Great Being, that he'd spoken well. Good assemblage is like that. Since it's like that, just as you have revealed, in that way the profound perfection of wisdom should be practiced, and the Tathagatas will also rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, Venerable Shariputra, Spirit of Balakshvara, the Bodhisattva, the Great Being, and the entire circle of disciples, as well as worldly beings, gods, humans, demigods, and spirits, were delighted and highly praised what had been spoken by the Blessed. So a little meditation on emptiness there. Let's just, again, just do the 9-point breathing for a moment here. So again, let's visualize that we have a hollow body here, and our body's just made out of lighter energy. So it's almost like if your body was like a chalk outline. And inside is beautiful sort of luminous empty space. If you want, you can visualize the 3 channels. If not, no worries. But this is what they say expels sort of sick winds or gets rid of negative energy or prana. Gives yourself some more sort of a feeling of internal space. Now touching sort of the, these are acupuncture points, but just you're touching this and we'll move it into what they call Vajra diamond fists. Index finger here, have them on your lap, and we're going to first of all inhale, close our right nostril, inhale through our left, then close our left, exhale through our right 3 times. Do the reverse here, inhale through our right, close our right, exhale through our left. So first 3, getting rid of desirous attachment. Next 3, getting rid of anger, frustration, reactivity. And last 3, nice 3 deep breaths in and out, and hold the last breath. Just put your mind at your navel. Sort of imagine that the breath is right there, being held just a little bit below your belly button. So the prana, your mind, and the breath are all mixed as one. And then release. So when you're ready here, just on your own time, start a visualization. So I'm just sort of relaxing with 9-point breathing, sort of taking more of the dispersive energy of talking philosophy and so forth, getting more into a meditative state. Now in a wide open space, ground like lapis, easy to sit on, beautiful, and surrounded by all sentient beings of the 6 realms of samsara. So the people in our own mandala that we're closer to, our family, friends, neighbors, work colleagues, and so forth are closest to us. And as you move out, it's all the beings you don't know personally, just the millions and billions of them. So our mother on our left, father on our right, people we love the most or attached to behind us as support, and people we like the least or have issues with, or even people we want to meditate for because they need help, we put in front of us. Now, humans from all over the world are with us, all different places, even different worlds, all different backgrounds. It's different celestial beings, gods and demigods, animals from all the, just think of all the different kinds of ecosystems in the world. from the very small and very big. The spirit world here is here as well. Just astral, ethereal realms, elemental realms are all here. So countless beings, almost as many as animals from that realm here. And again, other big number, all the different beings in lower states of rebirth, hell realms and hungry ghost realms. So we're all here together meditating. Thinking if everything is interconnected, this is kind of what it is at any moment anyway. Even when we don't visualize this, we're all together in this one kind of universe, massive universe, all interrelated, all interconnected. So at this moment, just think that we're sending out all good energies, good intentions and motivations out there to everybody. So for this one, for Ganden Gyema, again, hundreds of deities, land of joy. In other words, hundreds of devas or spirit beings, angels, and so forth of Tashita Pure Land, Ganden Pure Land, land of joy, land of bliss. This is the Pure Land of all the universal Buddhas who turn the wheel of Dharma. So Buddhas of this aeon. So Buddha Shakyamuni, with I think Maitreya is the coming Buddha. It's their Pure Land, as well as Pure Land of the wisdom Buddhas. So Manjushri, Sarasvati, and so forth. So we can see this in the sky, beautiful blue sky. We can actually see Tashita Pure Land just above us here. Beautiful, just like being here in BC or beautiful parts of the world, Nepal or anything. Just think parts of China, beautiful mountains and lakes, forests and so forth. Just like when I was a kid in Northern Ontario, just think it's a beautiful, pristine environment like that. And we can just think that in the middle here, just in front of us, is this little sort of university town, so to speak. Wonderful monastic colleges and temples and shrines and so forth, where all the Buddhas are. So when we look in all the beautiful temples and places, we can see different Buddhas, bodhisattvas, monks, nuns, yogis, yoginis, different gods and goddesses and so forth, all meditating, studying, debating, and so forth. And a central figure, just like Notre Dame in Paris, just like the big cathedral, doors are open, we can see in, is Buddha Maitreya, future Buddha, who might be here sooner than we think the way the world's going, but is coming down soon to teach another sort of doctrine of Buddhism, replacing the one we have now. And he's in a chair, showing that he's about to get up and kind of come down. Beautiful golden energy body with his hands in the turning the wheel of Dharma Mudra, with the index fingers touching the thumbs, fingers open, holding two beautiful white lotuses. And he has a crown on, and jewels and silks and so forth, just like royalty. And now on our left, or his right, is the founder of the Old Kanampa School of Tisha, Dipankara Vajana, a wonderful sort of superstar Buddhist saint and scholar who brought Buddhism Tibetan in the 11th century, that we call Sarma, or sort of second wave Buddhism in Tibet. The LamRim teachings and everything. Is wonderful Indian teacher from Bangladesh, from West Bengal. And he's got wearing 3 robes of a monk, yellow penance hat. And again, he's got his hands in the turning of Dharma Mudra too, with 2 white lotuses. And then on our right, or Maitreya's left, is Tsongkhapa, founder of the new Kanampa school. And he's in the way we usually visualize, holding the 2 white lotuses, wearing 3 robes of a monk, and so forth, turning the wheel of Dharma Mudra at his heart. Here's the continuity, all the teachings from Tashita Pure Land, coming to Atisha, and then coming down to Tsongkhapa, and then coming down to our wonderful Rinpoche, Archaya Zasep Rinpoche, and other lamas in our life here. Solon Dalai Lama, for instance, and so forth, all of them. Sort of, and then they're giving their teachings to us, or like a flowing river of blessings and teachings coming down from this beautiful Pure Land into us for all our teachers throughout the ages. So now at Maitreya's heart, again, we're just going to visualize from a little golden eternal knot symbol. This eternal knot symbol comes, they're all made out of energy or light, so it's easy to see these transformations. Comes all these white clouds. So just like whipping cream, beautiful fluffy white, or like a meringue or whatever. And on it, again, are Tsongkhapa. Tsongkhapa is again there on a lion throne, holding two white lotuses. And then his two heart students, Japa Gyatso and Rinpoche, just in front of him. And so they just have their left hands in meditation posture at their lap. They've got a little book in it. And their right hand just in the teaching mudra, just at their heart. So just if you've got the sadhana and take the refuge, otherwise just listen. I'll recite it here. I take refuge in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I attain enlightenment. By the merit accumulated from practicing generosity and the perfections, may I attain enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and Sangha until I attain enlightenment. By the merit accumulated from practicing generosity and other perfections, may I attain enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha until I attain enlightenment. By the merit accumulated from practicing generosity and other perfections, may I attain enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings. May all beings have happiness in its causes. May all beings be free of suffering in its causes. May all beings constantly dwell in joy transcending sorrow. May all beings dwell in equal love for both those close and distant. So now as we're doing the invocation, just feels almost like, one of those little cherry picker cranes that come up or whatever to fix the power lines on your place or whatever, or to trim a big tree, similar kind of thing. Pure this it's almost like cranes coming down close to us. But it's that so that's kind of the idea of what we're bringing Tsongkhapa from the Pure Land closer to us, but also just the clouds unroll themselves. So it's almost like someone's rolling out a yoga mat towards you slowly as you're doing the invocation. You feel that the clouds are coming, and the three gurus, Tsongkhapa, Japa Gyatso, and Rinpoche, are coming closer to us. So when we start this, where we're invoking here, just feel that they're just a few feet above us and in front of us here. From the heart of the protector, the hundreds of deities of the joyful land, to the peak of a cloud is like a cluster of fresh white curd. All-knowing Losang Drapa, King of the Dharma, please come to this place together with your two chief disciples. In the space before me, a lion from lotus and moon, the venerable Guru smiled with delight. Supreme field of merit from my mind to faith, please remain for 100 aeons to spread the teachings. Your minds of wisdom realize the full extent of objects of knowledge. Your eloquent speech is the arm of the fortunate. Your beautiful bodies are ablaze with the glory of renown. I prostrate to you, whom to see, to hear, and remember so meaningful. Pleasing water offerings, various flowers, sweet-smelling incense, light-scented water, and so forth. A vast cloud of offerings will set out and imagine, offer to you, supreme field of merit. Whatever non-virtues of body, speech, and mind have become in this time without beginning, especially transgressions my 3 vows. With great remorse, I declare each one from the depths of my heart. In this degenerate age, you store for much learning and accomplishment. Ban the 8 worldly concerns and major lesion and it meaningful. Protect her from the very depths of my heart. I rejoice in the great weight of your deeds. From the moon clouds of wisdom and compassion, in the space of your enlightened minds, venerable and holy gurus, please send down a rain of vast and profound dharma, appropriate to the disciples of this world. May your Vajra body, created from the purity of clear light, free of the rising and setting of cyclic existence, but visible to the ordinary viewer only in its unsubtle physical form, stay unchanged without waiting until samsara ends. Through the virtues that accumulated here, may the teachings and all living beings receive every benefit, especially may the essence of the teachings of Lama Tsongkhapa shine forever. Just doing a short mandal offering of a beautiful, purified universe at our hearts here, up to Tsongkhapa's 2 students, and then sort of up into Shita Pure Land, Maitreya, and all the other Buddhas. So wonderful Mount Meru here, the 4 continents, the sun and the moon, all these beautiful sort of treasures that we're offering up as a way of opening our heart here. This mandala is built on a base resplendent with flowers, saffron watered incense, adorned with Mount Meru and 4 lands, the sun and full moon. By offering this pure mandala to you, assembly of Buddhas here before me, may all living beings experience pure happiness and be reborn in pure lands. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru, so Madam Guru You are Avalokiteshvara, a great treasure of unimaginable compassion, Manjushri, master of flawless wisdom, and Vajrapani, lord of the secret and destroyer of hordes and Mars without exception. Tsongkhapa, crown jewel, the sages of the land of snows, Losang Drapa, questions are really sweet. So we can just visualize, you can, wonderful, beautiful golden light coming down from the hearts of three gurus in front of us. So it's kind of like sunlight or sunbeams, just kind of like a big bubble of energy going out and blessing all of us. So Tsongkhapa is seen as the emanation or manifestation of the Buddha of compassion, the Buddha of wisdom, industry, and Buddha of power, Vajrapani. So just wisdom, compassion, power, energy are going out to all the sentient beings around us. So it's just like literally, cloudy day and the sun comes out and you just get sunbeams everywhere. And for us, we can have a little bit more detailed. Three sort of little needles of light made out of energy come to the crown of our head. So we're getting all the light, but we're also getting like gold and nectar. It's just like molten gold. So if we were just like a little vessel, maybe some kind of a, I don't know, sort of a clay or wooden vessel that can take molten gold, doesn't melt or whatever, and then you pour the molten gold in. As a kid, I had the little Billy Bee honey thing where it's like a bear filled with honey, and it's plastic, it's probably leaching into the honey. But anyway, so you've got your little, when you wash it out, it's sort of just the plastic bear, and then you pour more honey in it, it fills up with the honey. I like to think of it the same way. I've just kind of got a golden outline of myself here, and all this golden energy is coming into me as we sing Tsongkhapa's mantra 3 times here. Hig me se wei ter chen chen rei zi. Pri me kien pe wang po jam. Du pung ma lu jom se sang wei. Gan chen ke pe sun kien song ka pa. Lo sang dra pe sha bla so wan de. Mi me se wei ter chen chen mei zi. Pri me kien pe wang po jam pao ya. Du pung ma lu jom se sang wei da. Gan chen ge pe su kien song ka pa. Lo sang dra pe sha bla so wan de. Mig me se wei ter chen chen rei zi. Pri me gen pe wang po jam pao ya. Du pung ma lu chom se sang wei da. Gan chen ge pe sun kien song ka pa. Lo san dra pe sha bla so wan. So down looking inside ourselves at our heart level, about the size of a quarter or so, is a little 8-petaled white lotus, almost like made out of butter, like it's really beautiful, sort of soft, made out of energy, and a flat moon disk on top of that. So now as we recite the last verses, let's just visualize first of all that we're doing dissolution here. So we can visualize that Tashita Pure Land starts to melt into golden light. So all the valleys and mountains and forests and rivers, lakes and so forth, and animals all melt into golden light, into the town, then all the different beings and buildings melt into Maitreya. And Atisha and Tsongkhapa melt into Maitreya as well. And now Maitreya becomes beautiful golden ball of energy, just like the sun coming sort of down towards us, sort of sucking up and dissolving all the clouds. And he melts into Tsongkhapa. All the clouds and thrones melt into Tsongkhapa, and then Kedrupche and Chopa turn into balls of golden light, and they get this all from Tsongkhapa. And then he gets really small, starts to shrink, just kind of becoming almost like a little piece of, it's like a kind of golden or yellow topaz, or like a little gold nugget or so, about the size of a sunflower seed. And he comes down to the crown of our head. It's been gold light, like a little gold nugget, like a little piece of gold here, just all sending out energy in all directions. And we recite the last 3 verses here. Glorious and precious Rupa, please come to Los and Moon seat of my crown. May your great kindness please remain with me. Bestow on me the blessings of your body, speech, and mind. Glorious precious Rupa, please ascend the Los and Moon seat of my heart. Your great kindness please remain with me. Please grant me the common and supreme realizations. And glorious and precious Rupa, please remain the Los and Moon seat of my heart. Your great kindness please remain with me and remain until I achieve the essence of enlightenment. So at this point here, the petals close up, just almost like sort of a tulip closing at night there. Lotus closes up. And we have Tsongkhapa at our heart, and sort of becoming one with us. So just looking at all sentient beings, we've all received this great blessing here from all Buddhas. And we can just dedicate everything we've done today. So by the blessings of all holy beings, all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, all of our gurus, the truth of causes and their effects of karma, basically what you project out is what you get. And the power of a pure spirit intention, that's bodhicitta. Everything we do or try to do is for the welfare, benefit, enlightenment of all sentient beings. May all of our dharma wishes be fulfilled. Okay, let me just press recording stop here. Thank you.